Okay, we're on Shabbat, Perek Yud Gimel, Mishnah Bet. This Mishnah turns to the nuts and bolts of what weaving is all about. And in order to understand it, there's a malacha, and it used to do a raita called Ta'oseh Shnei Batei Nirin, to make two Batei Nirin. And in order to really understand this, we're going to have to do a little bit of research into what in that exactly happens in a loom. Okay, so this I found on Pinterest, and this is a loom. Now, you have to sort of bear with me, and you can do a little bit more research on how a loom works. We're going to look a little bit about a little bit. The loom basically is a contraption with two main setups, two main rectangles, as it were, and the rectangles are holding opposite strings. Okay, they're holding the opposite strings and they're pulling them up and down. Every other string is being pulled up and down, and every time you pull, you make a division between one string. You'll run this cloth, this string through. Okay? And then you run it through, and then you take the whole thing, you push it up and down in switches, and then you'll run it through the other way. And that way you'll get your back and forth, and that's the process of weaving. Okay? This is basically a good example of the looms, basically any loom, basic structure of a loom. Okay? These rectangles are called, in halachic terminology, are called nirin, or this is the batei nirin. Okay? These rectangles are called, let me see if I can find the kahati. Yes, the kahati says these are called nirin. Okay? Because the strings are called, he says, in Greek, a chut is called nyaron. Yarn, I guess yarn. I have no idea, I don't speak Greek. Okay? These are called batei nirin. That's what the kahati says. Okay? And then every time you run a thing through, you take the reed and you go, shoot, you fill it forward. I found there's a million different resources. So I found a resource of this woman. Let me see, I'll move myself out of the way. You won't be able to hear her. But this woman who's making a loom, okay, she's making a loom from George Washington's time in Mount Vernon. Okay? So she explains while she's doing it, and I don't think you can hear her on the computer. See, she's running the yarn through. She runs it through, swooshes it as far as she can, and then she runs it back. Okay? But then if you'll see, there's going to be a close-up. Maybe I'll find a close-up. She runs it back and forth. Okay? You'll see that there are these strings. She doesn't have here we go. She doesn't have a rectangle, but these strings are connected. They're held in by these loops, by these tiny loops. And then the tiny loops pull the strings up and down in order for her to be able to do the process of weaving. Let me pause here. You can see here, as she's saying, that these little, let me go back a teeny bit because it's really important. Okay? These are the strings that are being held up and being pulled up and down. And you can see, if you really want to go here, just do how does a loom work, and you'll see weaving on Mount Vernon's 18th century loom. See how these tiny little holes, they make these threads, and these threads are pulling each string up and down. And there's one, and you have to string the length of the string, the threads in the weaving in the material, you have to thread them through each of these holes. Now, this is, according to one opinion, what batei nirin are. Batei nirin are the beit nir, are the holes that the yarn is thread through in order to then push them up and down in the weaving process. So let's go back to our Mishnah. I know there's a long introduction. Okay, so the Mishnah says shnei batei nirin, okay, banirin. So it's the machloket between the kahati and the bartenura. The bartenura says shtei batei nirin shenatan shnei chutim shel shti, two lengthwise threads. Banir. So, and that's basically exactly, you took two threads and you ran it through the nir. You ran it through this process, through this nir. On the other hand, the kahati says that according to Rashi, the kahati says, according to the Gemara, that you read it this way: Haoseh shnei batei nirin banirin. It's that process of making the holes themselves. It's the process of actually making these holes on this loom. Let's go back to my original, let's see if I can find it. And here we are. These holes, it's the process of making these holes on the nir itself. So you have a machloket. Is it the making of these holes and establishing them on these beams? Or is it the process of running two strings across? In any case, see, it's interesting. I think the bartenura is more compelling because if we look at the bartenura, we're going to see more examples. Haoseh shnei batei nirin banirin. It says shnei batei nirin means to run the two strings through. because that's the beginning of the weaving process. This malacha, batinirim, is the initiation, the first step in the process of weaving. Banirin, and then he adds on, the Gemara says, Shamarkiv shnei pa'amim chut shel shti banir. Upam shlishit markivo al chut amirkav al hakaneh. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I think it says, the Gemara says, you put banirin on the nirin, means you put two strings through the nir, and then the third time you put the chut amirkav al hakaneh, the string that's on the kaneh. The kaneh is, let me see if I can find my docket, my thing here. This would be the kaneh. You put the string through the kaneh. So it's unclear. I have to tell you, there's not 100% clear. According to the Bar Tenura, it's running the strings through, and according to Rashi, it's actually making these two strings. We're going to go on because that's enough. If you really want to know more, the internet is endless when it comes to weaving. But kerus is a mat, is a weaving mat. So if you look on the internet, you'll find a really, really fascinating video, how to make a palm mat. So you'll see here, okay, what he does is, this guy's, what they're doing in India somewhere, the first thing he's doing every other, he's basically making a weave. Stop right there. That is batei nir b'kirus. Okay? When you add and when you put the first two weaves together, up and down, on the top and the bottom, that is batei nir b'kirus, because once you have that, that's the formation of a mat. Now he's just going to add in a bunch of different layers. Once you start with two, that's batei nir b'kirus. So that's b'kirus. Kirus is Yuriah Aruga Misiv Shel Dekel. It's a palm mat. So the batei nir is the foundation. Benafa, bikvara, a sieve and a sifter, ubasal. What do you know? When you make a basket, how to make a reed basket, they do exactly the same thing. This is the beit nir. The beit nir is the first step. Stop right there. You can stop right there. There we go. You see the first step. You have the beginnings of the length, and then you put two in. Once you put two in, you're there. Once you put two in, you started your basket. Which makes me think, interestingly enough, that the beit nir, back to our weaving, isn't like Rashi says, this isn't just the making of the loops, but it's got to be the beginning of the string, the first two strings. Because once you have two strings, then you can run something through, and then you can have that. Then you can have the beginning of a cloth, of a weaving process. In any of these cases, chayav. Then you're chayav. You violated the isur d'oraita. Vatofer. Now it gets a little easier, very, very quickly. Vatofer shtei tfirot, or if you sew two stitches, v'hakorea al menat litfor shtei tfirot, or if you tear out two stitches in order to be able to now stitch two more stitches. Where we learn that the malacha of korea, there's no malacha to do something totally destructive. The only time you're violating malacha d'oraita is where you do something destructive in order to do something constructive. And even though we've learned these malachot of tofer and korea, the reason why we do korea is because we're going to see in the next Mishnah that there are some times when a person tears destructively, but is considered constructive nonetheless. Okay, I hope I haven't gone too long. I apologize if I have. There's a zillion other resources on the internet about weaving and about what the pictures of looms look like. I hope I explained Shnei Tapatim to the best of my ability what it is. I called a guy, there's a guy down south who actually owns a loom, and he has this, it's called The Talisman. You can look him up on Facebook. And I asked him if he would explain. He said, maybe I'll make a video about it. Stop here. If you have any comments or questions, as always, you can contact me at my email address, rspoter@gmail.com. I'm more dedicated to learning to the memory of my father, Harav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a great day.